with a hand in her hair. I can't help remember just when she touched me. Then there's still no face here in her place. So cool she was, like just on a summer's day. Music high and sweet, then she just blew away. Now she can't be that one with the wind in her arms. Valerie, call on me, call on me. Valerie, come and see me. I'm the same boy I used to be. There's still no faith here in her place. So cool she was, like just on a summer's day. Music she can't be that one with the wind in her arms. Valerie, call on me, call on me. Valerie, come and see me. I'm the same boy I used to be. I'm the same boy I used to be.
You know, it's funny, in a setting like this, there's like an impulse to sing along, you know, and it's like the last thing anybody wants to hear is me or anybody else singing along.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
This is a Steve Winwood edition of Timothy White's Rock Stars with special guest Jim Capaldi. And we're at Emerald Sound Studio in Nashville, Tennessee. And the occasion is the release of Steve's new album, Refugees of the Heart. And this is a very informal little get-together, a little intimate, thinking out loud kind of a thing. And just going through Steve's back pages with Jim and also the more recent past. Let's kind of go back down through the alley and play a little bit of this and that and talk about the songs. You had a suggestion just before we started here of one of the old great gems.
Yeah, well, this is going back probably longer than we care to admit. Jim played and sang background vocals and percussion. This was Spencer Davis' song, I'm a Man, which was after Give Me Some Lovin', and it had
lyrics by Jimmy Miller.
great lyric. He just kind of wrote it out. I'm not sure I can remember it.
My toilet's trimmed with gold.
My toilet's trimmed with gold, yeah. I can remember some of it anyway, so maybe we'll just do some of it, shall we? This is definitely not the dressed-up, overproduced version.
Don't try this at home.
All right, are we ready? Right, here we go. is all used up, just to sit and variated. All that gooey kind of stuff, but I'm a man. Yes, I am. Well, I can't help but love you so. Oh, no, but I'm a man. Yes, I am. Well, I can't help but love you so. Well, I got to keep my image while suspended on the floor. Got the side upon a kingdom of people all unknown who imagine I'm not human and my heart is made of stone. And I never had my problems and my toys to be thrown, but I'm a man. Yes, I am, and I can't help but love you so. But I'm a man. Yes, I am, and I can't help but love you so. Oh, no. But I'm a man. Yes, I am. I'm a man. Oh, yeah. But I'm a man. Yes, I am. Oh, I'm a man. I'll never know how to finish it. I'm a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that done in one take way back when?
Probably done in less takes than, than we might need today.
Yeah.
But
An album done the same afternoon.
yeah, I think it was probably a couple of hours.
A bit of a milestone in the groove, though, wasn't it? Because it had a Latin feel,
Yeah.
and Santana probably was the only band that then sort of came with that angle in from most of the rock that was happening.
Yeah, well, then after that, of course, Jimmy Miller went on to produce the Stones, which did have they started to incorporate that Latin thing. They had Rocky DeJohn.
Rocky and John. Sympathy for the Devil.
Sympathy for the Devil.
That's right, that's right.
right.
Do you ever think about that kind of Birmingham influence too? I mean, I even hear things on the new album, like a song like Running On. It has a kind of a southern heat to it, but also reminds me of that heyday of British blues rock and R&B. You know, way back those early Birmingham days with bands like, you know, the Applejacks and the Rockin' and then the Rhythm and Blues Quartet, you know, which became the Spencer Davis Group.
The Applejacks. That's going back a bit. Yeah. The Applejacks.
What was that kind of Birmingham scene like? I mean, did you guys hang out at Alex's Pie Stand opposite the Albany Hotel, or did you play at the Cedar Club on Constitution Hill?
Did we see you there?
This man has done his done his homework.
You're only as good as your information.
Yeah.
What was that scene
Yeah,
like?
we played the
Futural-
Cedar Club,
the
and
Futurals.
yes,
And the
Alex's
Pikes.
Pie Stand.
Back then, as media was slower, it was street and word of mouth. We were all still at home, Dave Mason and me and all the guys, and it was young, early days, and you didn't get to hear or see pictures and immediate press releases about anything. You just heard these records, and you know it was coming over the radio, and R&B was, you know, strong then in England, and I was convinced this was a 45-year-old Louisiana guy from on a back porch in the South, and I thought, God, gotta get this. This is, you know, have you heard this old blues record? When we found out it was like a 16-year-old lad from Brum, white kid from Birmingham, it was a bit of a shock. And Dave Mason and me went up to see a gig in Birmingham, and it was the first time we saw Steve, you know, and it was pretty good, that stuff. Let's
I'd
play
never met
American
you then, I
blues
don't
and-
think.
Nah.
Is it true you guys met at that record shop?
Yeah, the Discovery.
Right, in Birmingham.
Morris's Discovery, yeah.
Great
No-
bands. It was like Detroit, Birmingham,
With smaller engines. Without
And-
the Tamla Motown.
without the Tamla Motown.
Back here with the one and only Steve Winwood and his friend Jim Capaldi. And let's do a little history here. Steve, is it true that the original concept of Traffic came together in a pub in Aston in the English countryside called the Elbow Room? Because I think Jim Capaldi's band Deep Feeling was also hanging at the Elbow Room around the time that Chris Wood and Dave Mason and yourself would spend time there.
Yeah, Don Carlos is the name of the the gentleman
whom
who...
we all thought was a sort of a Spanish nightclub owner.
But in fact, his name is Carles, which is like a Worcestershire name. But I mean, he would have liked to have been Spanish.
It was a great nightclub.
So what were the conversations and thinking between the two of you when you used to be hanging out at the Elbow Room about traffic and what possibilities were there?
I mean, I was in Spencer Davis' group, and I was about ready to do something else. And
Jim was in deep feeling at that point, weren't you?
yeah. And I would play with them.
In those days, we were very much into nightclub music and then just hanging out places
That's right.
like till dawn in strange Whitley Court, Malvern Hills, you know, these great like locations. And
67, would it be?
yeah, and I was
so I was about 19.
20.
I was 19. I don't know whether, Flower Power had actually bloomed.
Well, I have a
People's
very
records.
distinct memory of that
You do?
due to the fact that a friend of ours from near where I live had gone to the States and come back. And through his experience I had with him, we realized that there were things afoot over on the old West Coast, shall we say. And then Linda Eastman came to see us at the cottage, and she had the Doors album with her.
Yeah, took some photographs.
Things sort of crept across the Atlantic. It wasn't exactly like now, with instant media,
Right, yeah.
Going to this cottage out in the Berkshire Downs, it became a little sort of a legend as the first kind of bunch of guys that actually went off of a distance from where they all lived in their city or wherever they were. And we got this cottage in the middle of nowhere and just lived there and just sort of played morning, day and night.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main idea was actually just to be able to play in the middle of the night without complaints. In those days you didn't have, electronic pads, and so you played drums on headphones and things, or, Rockman little things that go on your belt, that you play your guitar to. Those didn't exist then.
You get the birds tweeting on some of these tapes that you make and things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a later traffic. When the eagle flies
Right.
had birds singing. No eagles, though, but
It had a little wildlife.
kind of sparrows. Yeah,
We were sort of more of an English West Coast than anyone else in England, weren't we? We had more of a synonymous thing with...
folk music or traditional music.
Chris brought the barleycorn from this English folk group. And it sounded like... There were three men come out of the west, their fortunes for to try. That's how it sounded,
Yeah,
Great stuff, really.
it was good, yeah.
Well, there's like hundreds of versions of that song, aren't there?
Yeah, there are literally hundreds, and often they just changed, the words a little bit different, and the tune sometimes different. But this was one from, I think it was from Oxfordshire.
That title out on a slip of paper, and Steve and Chris Wood wrote the song in the Berkshire cottage you were all sharing while you took a nap.
It was just a doodle, really. You doodle on a bit of paper. This character playing a guitar with these puppet strings. And it was a letter is what it was. It was totally doodling. And I just wrote, Dear Mr. Fantasy, it was a letter. And I'd fallen asleep, I think. Whatever my shift was, I forgot. And I heard Steve and Chris downstairs. And went on for quite a while. And then I kind of woke up later. And they said, listen to this. And they sort of played it. And I said, great. It was just like this bit of paper they'd found.
And it went something like this, hang on. It went, of course, on guitar, of course. Dear Mr. of like that.
And you wrote it on guitar at first, huh?
Yeah. Chris Wood played organ on that. I didn't play organ on that. Dave Mason played bass. I played guitar. Dave played harmonica on it too.
Yeah.
Harmonica's making a comeback, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
With,
Well, it's all in the way you use it. I mean, sometimes you guys would use it where you might expect guitar chords, or in some cases where you'd expect a keyboard.
yes, that's right.
Another song you guys wrote back in that era, No Face, No Name, No Number.
Oh,
These
yeah.
songs would have such a wistful feel to them. This nice kind of bittersweet quality.
Oh, yeah. Can I just play a bit of that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, let me just play a bit of that. I'm looking for a girl who has no face. She has no name or number, and so I search within this lonely place, knowing that I won't find her. And I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Ruling my mind. I feel no sound. Don't know where I'm bound. The scenery is all the same to me. Nothing has changed or faded. I'm a part of it, a part of me, painted cool green and shaded. So I'm trying to find myself. Must be the only way to feel free. I feel no sound. Don't know where I'm bound. I'm looking for yes, and so it goes on and on. But that yeah, but that's about.
Yeah, back in the cottage. Just
Yeah,
gotta
back in the
take it as it comes.
No, but that's a great song. That Jim and I tend to write like with the lyric first, but this one was not. That was the melody was the starting point.
Oh, so you had the melody on guitar, and then where did the words come from?
Where did the song come from? Same place.
Never-ending search.
Do you look back and musically think, what space was I in and where I got that from?
Yeah, and I never really know. It's just like, it's really like Dear Mr. Fantasy. It's usually comes from some kind of doodle.
Yeah,
You know.
true.
I probably, sat down on the guitar and started to go, maybe it was faster. It might have been, you know. Or I don't know. And then I thought, well, it could be slower, and it would be nice.
So simple. Simplicity is probably what you, I don't know, recaptured.
Simple but intricate.
When you're writing, I guess it's the same, either lyric or music. You hear something, a phrase, because Steve does stuff that's so good anyway, as far as a jammed vocal, you know, and you can almost sometimes pick out what you think is a word from the sound of the voice. It suggests, you know.
That's right.
And then you're only going to get one word or a couple of words that give you like pulling the wool out of a sweater or something, and you're off. You know, you can sort of start constructing the idea.
Have you ever written a song together that just had a nonsense phrase and the lyrics didn't come till much later on?
Oh, lots of them. Yes, lots.
If we had all the cassettes that we have, or wherever they may be now, from jams at the cottage.
They do exist somewhere, I suppose.
If you can imagine the setting out there, we built a little ramp where the cars could park instead of being in 16 feet of mud. We eventually got this concrete car park.
A concrete stage.
And this car park became the stage. And people would come down, who'd be set up outside with the cornfields and stuff. And in that setting, time didn't exist, I don't think. Time slipped by us quite a bit in those days.
Yeah, I do.
And the flute and the organ, it was just magic, you know. I think the magic is in stuff like No Face, No Name. And
you can feel the wind rustling through these things, you know. You can kind of hear the animals, you know, playing backup and
scurrying
things.
Around.
Blue period.
Would there have been one song that had a nonsense phrase and finally got proper lyrics at some point?
Empty Pages.
I think Steve was sat in the cottage. That was one of your... I added a bit to it, but that was Steve's lyric and song.
Yeah.
Quite a bit there. I think he was staring at...
Staring at empty pages. That
blank
was,
pages.
Yeah, that was...
staring at empty pages.
Yeah. That was... someone who can cover me, but there are always exceptions, and she's good at appearing safe. All I just want you to know, staring at empty pages, standing round the same old time. Staring at empty pages, blowing the lonely angels, often lost and forgotten. The meanness and the mud. I've been thinking I'm working too hard, but I've got something to show. Yeah, I mean, it just went, there's a few odd lyrics really in there. But it's good.
Well, let's listen to the completed and released version of Capaldi. And Steve is at the keyboards, and Jim has his trusty percussion on hand. Jim, to focus on you for a minute, you were the lyricist with Traffic for so many years. I wonder, in terms of Steve Winwood's music, what that lyric philosophy would be as the songs are built up with a band and otherwise.
When you're in a group, it's different to being like a have guitar will travel session guy or have lyrics will travel writer. A have guitar will travel session guy or have lyrics will travel writer. That's turned more professionally. We sort of come from a group thing. But then I like those kind of things like Steve would write, or a friend of ours, Viv Stanshall. He wrote some pretty amazing things that you wouldn't get from your regular Tin Pan Alley writer, you know.
That's
and
right.
we did kind of like the eccentric side of it too, you know.
Right, he was in the Bonzo Dog Band,
He was.
Yes.
One
which
of
was a pretty eccentric
pretty eccentric.
Which was-
organization.
Yeah,
He's the one that did that
intro,
great
intro, outro.
intro, outro.
Intro, outro.
I'd like to introduce
Like to
President de
introduce-
Gaulle on accordion,
Yeah, that's right.
Eric Clapton on ukulele.
Ark of a Diver, of course, he
Of course, he
wrote.
came up with Ark of a
Yes,
Diver.
here we are, Ark of a Diver, during a kind of odd period in the kind of early 80s. That's quite something.
Title track of the hit album. I'm Timothy White here in the studio with Steve Winwood and special guest Jim Capaldi, and the live music they've been playing has been a real treat. We'll have a lot more when we return. Back here in the studio with Steve Winwood and Jim Capaldi. They've been playing and talking, and Steve has been sitting at his piano. Steve, if I'm not mistaken, way back when Mr. Waldron was giving you piano lessons, I think you were 3 or 4, the very first song you ever learned on the keyboards was Teddy Bear's Picnic?
Well, that's long before my time. I'll let you answer
Hang
that
on,
one.
hang on. Let me just think about this now. Yes, I think that's right. It went. Now, see, now, I mean, I'm.
Now, why didn't Traffic ever cover Teddy Bear's Picnic? I
Well,
mean,
look, I mean, all these things now come flooding back because I've got 2 young children now. So, of course, you know, I can play, you know, Puff the Magic Dragon, and my daughter sings these. So,
have you written any little nonsense songs for them?
well, we make songs all the time. I do with them. I just we just kind of sing, you know, we're going to the party now or something. You know, I mean, children's songs are interesting. I haven't really got around to compiling any children's songs. They tend to be more spontaneous.
Some of the very old ones, some of them are great.
There is a song on the new album called I Will Be Here, and it sounds like an ancient song in a way. It sounds like some old gospel classic.
Yeah, in fact, I can just see the author who's in there now. Has just arrived, Mr. Jennings.
Will Jennings, your
Yeah.
longtime collaborator.
Yes, there's Will. So maybe he might be able to tell you something about it too. But there's a method which is an old form of Welsh folk tune where it doesn't actually reach the note, but it's just in between 2 notes. I mean, it's used in it's used in the blues as well a lot. You know, it's just really bending notes, but it's not just kind of, you know, Teddy Bear's Picnic. It's a bit removed from Teddy Bear's Picnic. And here's Mr. Jennings now.
This is great.
Good to see you.
I'm finding out things I never
You
knew.
see that?
Yeah, and do you know Timothy?
No. Nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to
Good
meet
to see you, Will. It's such a moving song. When I first heard it, I thought that it could be a song that some, you know, lover would sing in a choir loft, but also say in the back of some old, you know, lonesome pub or something. It's like it has a real plaintive quality to it.
You know, I grew up in East Texas, and I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, and I grew up within hearing distance of the Black Baptist Church out in the middle of the country, so I heard that every Sunday. If I can find the soulfulness in something, then I can find the words in it.
Songs like that, from the time they come into being, they feel timeless.
They're prayers. I call them secular hymns. It's coming from deep within you. That's where it comes from with Steve, like 90% of the things that we've written or more.
It was one of those things we were talking about earlier where I just had a tape running and I just played some chords and just squawked some nonsensical lyrics to it. And
Well, it's a devotional song. I mean, it's about the fact that the speaker, the singer, can be relied upon.
Right, yeah.
yes, I'll play a little bit.
Yeah.
Not sure whether I can get all this now, but I'll try as much as I can. You would cry in my arms for the world and its charm. that kind of love. Bigger is never done. Till the rose of day, when you bring your heart home to stay. I will be here when you call. I will be here, standing tall. I will be here. You won't fall. Don't you know our love will save us after all? Good. When cold winds blow, when sweet summer glows, and all your wandering years disappear. There are places inside the heart will touch. I will be here when you call. I will be here, standing tall. I will be here. You won't fall. Don't you know our love will save us after all? I will be here when you call. I will be here. All in all, I will be here. You won't fall. Save us after all. Almighty time rolls on. Let's not spend it all alone. We are here, and we're That's kind of it.
You know, in listening to this song, it just makes me think, again, having the three of you here, you know, Jim, Will, and Steve, that so many of the songs that the three of you have written, they're very values-oriented. Songs about people being able to rely on each other.
It's like you're trying to make a bit of magic where something lasts, where everything else doesn't.
The Finer Things is another good example of that. It is such an uplifting song. I've always loved that phrase, the golden dance life could be. It's like, yeah, you know, there's a lesson there. It's a good lesson in that little song. I'm Timothy White here in the studio with Steve Winwood, Jim Capaldi, and we've been joined by another special guest, songwriter Will Jennings. Steve, I'd like to ask you about a song on the new album, Refugees of the Heart. We've been talking here about the emotions and the values in a number of these songs, and You'll Keep on Searching. That particular track seems to be a song about compassion. I'm wondering how it was constructed.
Actually, that song for me grew quite a certain amount after we wrote it. Skeletally, it looked good. It looked interesting, and we kind of left it like that. It was one of those strange things where, as we put different instrumentalists on it, like Randall Bramlett and Russ Kunkel and Michael Rhodes and Bashir Johnson, they somehow seem to give the song more meaning. It's a strange thing. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes the song is like it was and you cut it and it's still the song it was when you wrote it, but somehow the treatment of it lent the right amount of mystery.
The lyric came off of 2nd Avenue in Nashville.
How do you mean?
Well, I was staying down here just before I went to England at a hotel downtown. And I used to go down to a place down there and then walk back about midnight or after midnight. People would come up to me asking for money, and some fairly rough-looking folks around there and everything. And I when Steve played me that music, that was the vibe. It was a street thing, and you know, you see people who are constantly searching, and you see them do it forever till they die.
You'll keep on searching. Steve Winwood from Refugees of the Heart. I'm Timothy White, back here in the studio with Steve Winwood and collaborators Jim Capaldi and Will Jennings. Steve, a few years ago, when we were talking about the Ark of a Diver album, the first hit, While You See a Chance, it has that kind of ecclesiastical organ intro, and it reminded you at the time that, as a kid, in St. John's Church in Perry Barr, North Birmingham, you used to sneak into the choir loft to play Ray Charles songs like What I Say on the organ.
Yes, when there's no one around, and when the, switching the organ on and getting someone to pump it and playing. But listen, I must play this version that Jim and I got. I've got to try and remember it now.
So this is an alternate version.
Yeah, alternate version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a copyright Charles.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's the saloon version. Having all three here, Jim, Will, and Steve, let's talk about, say, something being greater than the sum of its influences and coming together on the new album, Refugees of the Heart. The song that Jim and Steve wrote called One and Only Man, the first single. It's got all those great meat and potatoes R&B components, and it feels very new and yet kind of full of heritage at the same time.
We wrote it very, very quickly in a day. I mean, Will writes very quickly too, but I felt that we needed something that was like an up-tempo kind of song.
Yeah, up against the wall.
Yeah, and so I called him and I said, look, we've got a day off on Monday. I said, why don't you come up Sunday night and let's see if we can do a song. We're in the studio on Tuesday.
Was this here in Nashville?
No, this was in England.
Okay.
We were recording in England. And I said to Jim, come on up. Well, he got up at about 9 o'clock.
Went to the pub.
Yeah, 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening. I was sitting around all day going, where is he? And he rolled up at 9 o'clock. So we just went out to the pub and didn't do a stroke of work. Went back and slept rather heavily.
Should we get into a little pub talk here?
Sure.
Yeah, there is something about the pub.
Well, you know, they're usually 15th century. Beams everywhere, you know. And Steve took me to a great pub where the gypsies come in each year and have a gypsy fair, you know. And in the old days, the signs outside the old pubs, like the Three Bells or the King's Head, there was a lot of people in those days who were illiterate and couldn't read. So they'd say, I'll meet you at the Three Bells. You see, they could recognize it.
Or there's a great one in Oxford called The Eagle and Child. And the locals actually call it the Bird and Baby. But it's...
Can we say the name of the pub where One and Only Man might have gotten started?
Might have been conceived. Plough? Was it the Plough?
See, the funny thing about a pub is that people think, well, you know, you go in there and things are timeless and nothing ever gets done. But those old pubs in England, they make you feel like if you don't write the song, someone else is going to.
That's very well put.
Yeah. You know, by this time, I mean, I was having trouble navigating my way back from the loo, you know. And I wasn't focusing too well, but managed to sit on the seat. Yeah.
But it is inspirational around some of the old villages and pubs around England.
Oh, yeah, that's where I'd say 80% of the things that Steve and I have written came out of that countryside, and the pubs and the feeling there.
Let's play the finished version of that song, One and Only Man. Will and Steve started it in the Plough, a pub in the English countryside, and now it's the first single from Refugees of the Heart.
Actually, I wanted to play a bit of that came in for a certain amount of criticism. Let's not, you know, labour over the subject of beer, but, you know, it'll probably outlive its connections. I think it already has.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you know what the night can do? Came out of those magic summer nights. And
So it'd be out in Gloucestershire, and the Northern Lights would be out there hovering just above those dark, dark English summer nights.
Yeah.
And you guys would start cooking a little something up.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you play a little bit of Don't
Yeah.
You Know What I Can Do?
Okay. Hear the night music playing. Don't you know what it's saying? Could feel it together forever. Feel the beat, I just hold on to the sweet midnight flowing. Feel the music inside you. I'll be there too. Now's the time when our dreams are never coming true. You're so good, we're crying. When the night comes, we barely let in. Love will be crying. your feelings. On the night it's revealing some good that enfold you. Let me hold you. Now we turn into music, and we never will lose it. When the rhythm and night right, no heart can hide. There are times that never ever come again. Memories that we're making. When the night calls, we better let it in. All this love for the taking. Don't you know what the night can do? Don't you know when it's touching you? Won't you help me to learn it through? Don't you know what the night can do? Oh. Fade out.
Wow, what a treat. Don't you know what the night can do? Live, just for us, from Steve Winwood and Jim Capaldi. I'm Timothy White here in Emerald Sound Studios with Jim, Steve, and Will Jennings. We'll be back with a lot more. And this is the Steve Winwood edition of Timothy White's Rockstars. And before we resume with Steve and his special guests, let's listen to another track from the new Refugees at the Heart LP. A dirty rocker called Another Deal Goes Down. Reminds me that even though you're known primarily as a keyboard player and an organist, in the old days, you used to play guitar a lot. Even jam in clubs in the Spencer Davis days with Eric Clapton and people like that.
That's right, yeah.
The organ came.
The organ came a bit later.
Later.
Well, you see, what it was is that in those days, before I had an organ, I mean, when you played around at pubs again, which is where most of the rooms were that we played, the rooms above pubs, and if you were a piano player, you had to cope with these kind of excuses for pianos that you'd find abused kind of Victorian furniture in the corner gathering dust, you know. And this is what you had to kind of pour out your soul on.
But you were known as a mean guitar player then.
I used to play quite a bit of guitar then.
And you had the
That's
thumb
right.
pick.
That's right.
You don't see that so often. The pick that goes over the thumb.
All right.
Well, you see it in Nashville.
But you used to scat with the guitar. You used to, like George Benson does now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You did a lot of that.
Yeah, I
then.
used
That
to
was
do
pretty
that. Yeah.
Cool.
There was one track we did way back, which I loved on guitar, but that was Rock and Roll Stew.
Oh, that's a great
Yeah.
song.
Great.
Uh-huh. That's right.
Jim Gordon and Rick Gretsch, who's
Rick
no longer
Gretsch.
with us.
Rick
Well,
Gretsch.
Jim's locked away. He's with us, but he's...
Mm-hmm.
I think they had the basics of the song, and you put it into that riff. You worked the riffs out. There's twists in there.
Yeah, it does twist the bob and weaves a bit.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
not too many riff songs anymore. You know, those
No.
periods when the riffs were big riffs.
Yeah,
And
no,
Rick-
that was a good funky track.
It
yeah.
was. It was.
I'm trying to think of a song that we could kind of unite all these different strains that we've been talking about, you know, a little churchified thing that you, Steve and Will were talking about, that kind of background, and maybe for something to go out on in the here and now. I saw that you had Presence of the Lord written down
Yeah.
as,
Which is Eric Clapton's song,
right?
of course.
You know, maybe we could get a little something going with you and Jim. And
Yeah. So there's a few ways to do it. You could go. like I never did before. Though I don't have much to give, I can open any door. Everybody knows the secret. Everybody knows the score. I finally found a way to live in the presence of the Lord. Need a saxophone solo or a guitar solo. Everybody knows the secret. Everybody knows the score. Oh, I finally found a place to live in the presence of the Lord. Oh, the Lord.
Great.
The Emerald version.
That's right. I'm Timothy White here with Steve Winwood, Jim Capaldi, and Will Jennings, and this has been a Steve Winwood edition of Timothy White's Rock Stars. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for taking this time to rake over these old memories and going down these twisted old paths.
Yeah, I found some places that I never thought we'd been, actually. Right, thanks.
Great seeing you.